Now, this year, we all know June was like the hottest June on record. I think 2 or 3 heat waves. If we blinked, we missed our irises. They just bloomed and then were gone a day or two. Oh, and when we moved into our house 4 summers ago, Lily gave us a bunch of peonies. And the peonies, they budded and then they just turned black. All the flowers didn't bloom because it was so hot. And then, of course, July. It's like I'm sure it's a record now how wet it is. It's just so. If you've been coming to our episodes over the last 6-7 months, you know we've been learning all sorts of things, all the basics about soil and the symbiotic relationships between the plant and the microbiomes, and then the plants and the wildlife. And so if there were other flowers blooming in June, like the peonies and like the irises, and they just came and went like that, and the bugs were ready for them, and then they weren't there. That's what we're starting to see. So I know in the promotion for this, it's like how to the promotion was, we're going to talk about climate change and how do we respond to that. And I know I don't really have answers for this. I mean, we have Prassede and we have other people who are much more knowledgeable about pollinators and that relationship, and how that is affected. And they can recommend different plants that we can plant that will adapt to these changes. But I think on a larger scale, well, we have created climate adaptation plans. These plans are for people and they're for infrastructure. But I don't know if we really have a climate resilience plan for the environment, a climate resilience adaptation plan for the environment. And so I was thinking, one of the reasons we started this group was in response to the overdevelopment of the suburbs and how we're losing our wildlife, how we're losing our pollinators. And the plan was to educate gardeners about that and create a community of gardeners in response to that. And why can't we do that in response to climate change? Why can't we learn what to look for in our individual gardens? And we have experts about specific things, and we can come here to this forum and we can discuss and figure out as a community how to respond to these changes, these like to drought, to floods, to extreme swings in temperature, to unpredictability, to new invasive pests. So I'm just throwing this out there.
This was this meeting Daria was interested in, if you want to hear it while you eat.
I can add, Fred, that from the human health side, Lyme disease is something that is considered a climate change disease because the climate
Mr.
that is
Farmer's Market
agreeable
thing
to the
about
Lyme
climate change
Oh,
and
is
pollinators and food and all of that.
Hey, Regina,
Yes?
could you mute yourself?
Oh, so sorry.
Thanks. Yeah.
yeah, so the areas that are tolerant to the Lyme spirochetes is expanding. And so things like that are, similar, just our place in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
I work at a Lyme clinic, for those of you who don't know, and I do the psychiatry, and it's profound.
So, this is pretty serious stuff. It's just, we're looking at pollinators and growing food and all that, but that's just a small part of the ecosystem. It's a small part of the environment. And it's the system that supports life on this planet, and it supports us. So I just feel like we can, it can be overwhelming, or we can, just by our individual yards and collectively, maybe we can do something positive about it.
Create, as we've been teaching, is the more people that plant even just small parts of their garden, just for the first step, that could be literally the pollinator pathway that really helps. And fortunately, Massachusetts passed a healthy soils bill. There's so many farmers and landscapers and ecological groups that have pushed it through, and they got it through, and they specifically say they realize that it will improve climate resiliency, will improve water quality and farm viability, because the other huge focus in order to have healthy soil is to focus on biodiversity. So the more variety you have, especially so the focus should be adding more things to plants to your landscape, and that priority is to add the native, to take the pressure off of removing every single non-native. It's to remove just the worst case and then plant a lot of the native to reduce the amount of grass that you have, the amount of normal quote unquote lawn with the noisy gas powered blowers and mowers and what have you. And just wonderful things are happening. The Kiss the Ground group has been literally talked to Tom Vilsack, who's in charge of the agriculture secretary. And the key thing is healthy soils literally draws down carbon. And it also, the healthier our food is, it helps with our health and bringing, and also this wonderful bringing people out back into the gardens without the chemicals, especially. It really helps with people's anxiety which we all feel on occasion for sure with this big problem of climate. But I've seen so many incredibly hopeful solutions all around the world, and so many people that are diving into to help. I mean, the UN even declared this decade decade of ecosystem restoration. So and as some have seen Doug Talamay, it's like if you just start with a small little patch in your yard where you add biodiversity, and then when you have more time, keep adding.
Yeah. Prassede, do you have access to that wonderful picture of the people who planted 2 or 3 million plants? I maybe do if you don't. It's unbelievable. That's just one of the most hopeful things I can see. And I mean it literally and metaphorically. Like, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best is today. I'll add, maybe while she's looking for that, I don't know if you guys know Jane Goodall's Roots and Shoots program.
Yeah.
Roots and Shoots is her outreach. I've been involved in different things with her over many years. And she has an update on her website about a primary school that is spending time surveying birds, pollinators, and butterflies. And they were learning how to record and monitor, and the kids had a wonderful time. And it's reported on her Roots and Shoots page. And I was thinking, we're all set up to do it now.
Yeah.
We can bring them in, teach them what's up, what's going on about the many layers of habitat and food, and who's feeding who and who's eating off which. And, we set it up to be the yard to be a lab demo.
So I think the part that we don't really know about, and that people argue about a whole lot. I'm leaving the picture up for a moment because it makes my point, or the point that I think we don't know about, which is, if you go from the picture from 2001 to 20 years later, that's going to create different feedback loops at a scale that would start to make a difference on the things that we're talking about. How much it can do that, whether it can change weather and climate, at what scale it can change it, I don't think we know that. But I think the important thing is not to give up. If the whole planet looked more like this picture than like this picture, it's going to have different heat and water cycles, period. It has to. Physics, the laws of physics will still pertain. And that's going to have a big effect. And we know that it occurs on the scale of, say, Phoenix, Arizona versus the desert around Phoenix. That even if you go from Winchester to Arlington, there's a sort of 8 to 10 degree difference, thermal difference, because Winchester has so many more trees. So there's going to be a multiplier and a synergy of this sort of stuff. And I think it's a grand experiment, as in, we don't really know what's going to happen, but we can't give up. And we have lots of reason to think these things will make a difference. So I'm all in favor of, we keep planting the bejesus out of everything, because that's what's going to make the biggest difference. And it's really the thing that we can manage. We can do this. We know how to do this. We have so much technology and ability, but we don't have the political will. And that's what we need to mobilize. We need to do both levels, right? We need to be planting all around us, and we need to be working on the people who are in charge and running the show, because those are the people who are perhaps have different end goals than we do.
I'm actually working with Kiss the Ground on the Citizen's Guide to the Farm Bill. I've studied that in some classes that I've taken, and they're literally diving in to make sure in the next few years that the incentives in the Farm Bill support healthy soils, not these awful industrial farming. And it also, because a lot of people don't realize that's a big part of the for food insecurity.
Right.
And they're trying to, like, it's wonderful. All these farms these farmers markets, they're providing SNAP benefits so that people are able to buy healthier food. And because they've made the connection between the food, if you're lacking in healthy food, you have more chronic healthcare problems, which everybody complains about their healthcare premiums. If we helped reduce the chronic diseases, which is the big connection of healthy food, then we just have that much more money to then turn around and restore the ecosystems faster. And then once they're restored, then help nature do what it does best. So it's very reassuring. And also what we can do in Massachusetts is to really help with the implementation on the Healthy Soils Bill over the next few years, because the key thing that's needed for the Farm Bill is to be able to point to successful programs. So as examples.
It's also true, there's a couple of bills before Congress right now for supporting pollinator pathways, for supporting ag that leaves habitat for various organisms. Anybody here who is not on Winchester Green Network, you might be interested in joining it. It's a place where I post, anyone can post. There's about 85 people who are members, and I just posted this as a news item today. If you send me or Fred your email, I'll be happy to invite you so that you'll get these things, because it's important to see that other people are also trying to do this. And I would say we have 85% of what we need to do. We know 85%, the technology and whatever. What we're missing is the political will, the financial incentives. Short-term financial incentives are driving so much of the framework and political decisions in this and other countries. And it's driving us into the ground, literally.
Fortunately, there are some companies like General Mills that are converting 1 million acres because they saw the huge potential, and they're also adding another layer where they're going to be the farms that they're helping convert over. They're going to really step up the data collection to really help move forward and clarify what can be done.
Can I just add one thing? The image you showed earlier, Prassede, what struck me and probably struck most of us is the aesthetic. You see that green, you see the lushness.
Yep.
And the point I'm trying to make is that when you suggested the pollinators I was going to get rid of the lawn, I didn't imagine the aesthetic that I'd bring into the lawn. I mean, I'm going to show you photographs, because that is what's going to strike people, because you're not only talking about pollinators, but you're also talking about an aesthetic you're bringing into your lawn, into your backyard. That's just phenomenal. So, I mean, that's the thing. And I know you're doing something, and that's why I called in yesterday. You're doing something in the town. It's not just about the pollinators. You're also trying to beautify the place. You're trying to bring in an aesthetic, which is something that I think we should also emphasize. And so I've actually started posting my backyard, the few pollinate, the seeds you gave me. I posted it on my Facebook, and I'm just sharing it. I'm saying, look how beautiful a stupid lawn looked like before, and look at it now. So I think that's what we also have to sell, the aesthetic.
Well, and the aesthetic, to your point, is also physiologic healing, right? We
Oh my
need that
God. Oh my,
calm-
absolutely.
Exactly. I mean, I find myself going out in the morning, going out in the evening, just sort of like checking in on nature. I mean, oh my gosh.
I check on my wife. She sits out there, has a cup of coffee, and just admires the little patch we have out there.
Like an
So,
aesthetic
absolutely.
inside and out. Yeah.
Absolutely.
There are some states that are supporting for healthcare to literally prescribe going out into nature
Very
to
true.
Immerse yourself. Immerse yourself.
Yeah, I'll also put a word out for Tim Ryan, the politician, I think he's Ohio. He's got a whole platform about regenerative agriculture and is pushing for some of that. He's kind of connected to the healthcare, functional medicine world that I'm involved with. It's neat to know that there are people out there who are trying to be informed and making it happen.
So we live here in the suburbs. A lot of these practices are great for more rural areas. And I'm sure a lot of you have thought how to bring that into the suburbs. We can do that like Prassede is doing with partnering with the Conservation Commission, or what Ivan is doing with posting to Facebook and just showing his photographs of what he's doing with his yard. Sandy can attest to our yard. We've been working on it bit by bit, and it's really changed the environment in our yard and the wildlife in our yard. And I'm not sure if some of our neighbors appreciate it. With a family of rats going by and the groundhog that moved in, and I don't know, all these rabbits going through, just loving what we've done. But we also get flocks and flocks of birds, and it's just nature's coming back to our yard.
Well,
And the thing is that it's a trial and errors, like what Carol said, is just keep planting. And some of it's going to disappear because it's not going to adapt well to the changes. And some of it's going to disappear because the rabbits love it, no matter what we do to protect it. But we'll just plant something else.
Yeah, I love how there's different ways that you can do it. The fact that Martha Stewart and Prince Charles are jumping in, so that if you can attract some animals and maybe distract other ones if that's the neighborhood you're in. But it's not like this all or nothing scenario that absolutely do as much as you can. But I find just too many people think that there's too many restrictions, but there's a lot more flexibility out there.
Yeah, Carol, I'd love you to make a comment about how even when growing clover, you want to add diversity.
Exactly. Clover is wonderful at providing nitrogen, and it's much better at providing nitrogen because it can be done naturally versus applying it artificially. But too much nitrogen is too much nitrogen, whether or not it's naturally or industrial. So I had to adjust and make sure that there was more grass growing and other more native type grasses and other ground covers to mix in with the clover. So yeah, so it all boils down to biodiversity and dosage, and work with your current context. Be careful of following what your neighbor does. Make sure you pay attention to what your conditions are.
So there was comment about no-till farming. And part of that process, an essential part of that, is making sure your soil is always covered. Clover is a great ground cover, but there's all kinds of ground covers, and that helps the heat absorption of the ground.
I heard buckwheat's good.
Yeah, all kinds.
There's a very strong, for me, it's always been, it's a combination of a science and a belief. It's that the ground cover is like skin, and that when you wound the ground cover, you have to heal it back. You have to do something to replace what has been damaged, destroyed, because like skin, it holds a lot of stuff in and it holds other stuff out. It has a real function. And if you have that metaphor, I think it applies to so many things, because it gives space to the idea of it's a dynamic system, that things are changing, that it's not just something that's lying there. It has it participates actively in what's going on. And a trivial but relevant association, when I had a new vet, took my cats to the vet, and they shave them they shave up big patches to do whatever they need to do. And I was quite offended. And I said, but you can't do that. You know, you make them vulnerable to mosquitoes and infections and scratches and bites from each other. There's a protective thing going on there, and you've just broken that barrier. You've really messed with it. And it's going to be, I don't know, 2 months until it grows back, 3 months until it grows back. I feel like that's a useful way to think about coverage on the whatever is growing in the soil. It's protecting, and it's protecting in every direction. And we need to cherish it, replace it, appreciate it, work with it, because it's a very powerful piece of the picture.
So to your point, when we think about the like vegetable garden, maybe somebody else knows, I'm new to growing vegetables. I've done them over the years, but never, with the philosophy and science behind it. But does it make more sense to clip and leave the roots in? Is that part of the no-till?
Yes. It depends on whether you're planting something after you harvest your current crop. If you're doing that, then you can pull the roots out, because then the microbes have something else to go to.
No, it's so interesting.
But
And
if it's the last crop of the year, and then you leave the roots in.
Okay. I'll add a little anecdote also to the clover conversation. On the internet, I bought some 4-leaf clover seeds, and I planted them in through the clover that I've got to cover places that we didn't just want lawn. And some of you might know, I do child psychiatry, and I'm hoping that the yard will be an outdoor office space. Parents are loving the thought that therapy could include nature, which is just fabulous. But I had my first 8-year-old looking for 4-leaf clovers. It was just such a wonderful moment. We haven't found any, but I did plant them, I promise. But it's just such a, he came in with the like, isn't that lucky? And how will I know? When he found some 2-leaves, and I mean, it was really quite spectacular.
well, and actually there's that wonderful program that was started in LA, and this guy actually calls it gangster gardener. So he basically is taught what used to be really tough people to learn how to garden. And the documentary, it's wonderful how they showed how they're too tough to garden, and then how they absolutely loved watching their gardens grow, and how they were producing things, and how they were bringing their friends in. And it was beautiful.
It's a movie to see. Gangs the Gardener, is it called?
I'm trying to remember the name of the gentleman. I can add it to the
in the
chat.
Yeah, wonderful.
But also in regards to ground cover, also factor in making sure the more you plant something that will be photosynthesizing, because that is basically providing liquid carbon. So we always talk about carbon footprint. If you, in reverse, you plant more, that's going to be providing liquid carbon, because photosynthesis, they've realized, helps to draw down the carbon and go into the soil and actually use it. You hear these technological solutions of injecting it into different, into the ground, into storage areas, but the best way is to actually feed the soil, so the soil can then have that symbiotic relationship and come back and feed the roots and make much healthier plants. So there's a biodiversity in the type of ground cover that you use.
Fred, do we have time? I would like to add
Yeah.
one thing.
What's that?
I wanted to add one more thing if we have
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, and then after that, we'll go to Mike.
Okay. So I think there's a holistic way of looking at this that we have touched on peripherally, but not explicitly. So I want to make some of it explicit. We want to feed, we talk about pollinator planting because we want to support the butterflies and the moths and the bees. But one of the things we need to get over is the idea that we can choose, we're going to do bug zappers, but we're going to plant pollinator plants. I feel like we need to have a more integrated view. We need mosquitoes and gnats, and because there are lots of things that eat mosquitoes and gnats, and if you keep trying to be inclusive rather than exclusive, it's going to heal things a whole lot better, because what we're really trying to do is to increase the amount of interactivity, whether it's among plants, between plants and the soil, between the microbiome and the plants, between the pollinator plants and their pollinators, among them. And then, of course, the insects and the birds and the bats that eat the insects, so that you have to keep thinking about who's eating whom here, what are the interactions that are happening, and where have we taken things out that are gonna shut down one chain of interactions. So much as we might not like ticks and mosquitoes, and certainly ticks are a health issue through Lyme disease, we have to be very careful about what the pieces that we try to destroy or try to manage. It's all part of the big picture.
And to that point, if you keep yourself healthy with the microbiome in the soil and in your body, your immune system will be stronger. And when Lyme comes across you, it may not make an infection.
Yeah.
Right? We've
And
talked
there's
about
clover.
the healthier the plant, the more it's protected against the invaders in the plant and the diseases.
And clover, the clover flowers makes an incredible tea that's on every internet page I went to. It specifically says it helps to build your immune system. I was like, I should have sold it last year.
Yeah, but wait, I need to add one thing. Clover also is full of pseudoestrogens, and they will really mess up your cycle. So I wouldn't do clover tea, frankly. It's very disruptive hormonally. It's an endocrine disruptor of the first order.
That's
If you have
interesting.
too much of it. That's, yeah.
So does anybody know how to actually grow healthy dandelion? I've heard that dandelion is one of the most healthy things, but I'm scared to actually do the ones in my yard. I mean, eat them. Anybody have thoughts about that one?
Yeah,
Dandelion seeds that you can buy at the market.
yeah, it's not the growing part, it's getting over that thing that anything, well, it's like we have a mulberry tree in our backyard, and it's like it gets to the point where the whole tree is like so heavy with mulberries, but it's like, oh no, the berries we get at Whole Foods and Market Basket is so much better than the berries on that tree, even though it's right there. And
No, I hear you.
yeah,
Wait a second, are you saying you don't eat those mulberries?
we're starting to.
The neighbor has a mulberry tree, and the birds and I have a great time every
Yeah.
summer. Just,
Oh, the birds love them.
oh my
I
God,
do love them too.
so do I. And they make beautiful pie and jelly and jam, just saying.
Yeah.
If you don't want them, I'll come pick yours, Fred.
Okay.
And they're expensive.
Yes. And our next crop are elderberries too. So
I'll do that in a second. Let me just explain a little bit about what I'd like to talk about, what you invited me here for. I love hearing all of this stuff. I do teach at the high school, at Winchester High School. I am the former director. I'm no longer the director. I'm teaching full time, but that actually helps me out a lot because instead of teaching 1 or 2 sections of AP Environmental Science, we've got let's see, what is it? 2 sections of AP Environmental next year, and we're adding a section of CP, College Prep Environmental Science. As director, one of the things that I always grappled with, I felt so strongly that everybody needs, like all of our students, you know, director is 6 through 12, so I was concerned with middle and high school, that in our science classes, these kids get a good foundation of environmental science. And really a lot, that what that really boils down to is systems. As some of you already talked about that a lot. It's just all about the interactions. And so, you know, part of me as director wanted to kind of mandate that everybody take environmental science, but it really wasn't something that we were going to be able to do in our school system. And it turns out that we don't really need to. We've done so much hiring over the past 10 or 15 years. You know, I think almost everybody that we've hired at the middle school has come from an environmental science background. And this wasn't necessarily conscious. I mean, it wasn't on my part, but, you know, in terms of the principals and the district and that sort of thing, it just so many people who are going into science have this background. And so they were bringing it into the classes on a regular basis anyway. So even just with our core curriculum, but it's exciting at the high school now that we've got a CP environmental science class that'll run next year for the first time. And, you know, CP is basically, it's non-honors. And so it really reaches a different crew than the AP environmental science classes do. A lot of students will take AP classes because it says AP, not necessarily for the subject matter, although so many of our students are so into it, which is great. But it's nice. I'm really excited for next year that we'll have a totally different crew, and I don't have to be bound by the College Board curriculum. I can really take things wherever they are. So that's sort of my background here as to why I'm coming into a Winchester group. I teach at the high school, and I've been working with the students for, I think this will be my 20th year at the high school. But more specifically, I started a few years ago. So actually, let me share my screen at this point. This is the new building. You know, it's been, or I guess it's been a few years that we've been in it, and that it has been pretty much completed. And I remember being very worried because they were cutting down, I think it was 90 some mature trees during this building project. And they weren't building as you know, or I think many of you know, they weren't building the building from scratch. It was using the same footprint as what was already there. But what was actually really exciting is that even though they were cutting down 90 some mature trees, they were planting something like 250. And so they made a conscious effort really to green up the campus as much as, you know, possibly can be done there. And in looking at the plans, I actually got my hands on the landscape plans. A lot of the trees that they were planting were locals or cultivars, like the different types of maples, but that's a whole lot better than just all of the exotics that have always been planted. There is a little grove of ginkgos, and there's some zelkovas here or there, you know, but a lot of the trees are maples and birches, and they planted many service berries or shadbush, Juneberry. So it was really nice to see that they were making an issue, you know, an effort to bring in a little bit more, maybe not totally native, but closer to it than not. I was a little disappointed, I should say, that they didn't plant any oak trees. Those of you, I think some of you are talking about Douglas Talamy earlier. Obviously, the oak tree is the stalwart for bringing nature back. But I guess I can understand that with all the acorn issue on a school property. But what I'm trying to do with the students, we started, let me zoom in here on this side. I think this is like the, let's see, what is this, the east side of the building here. Oh, this doesn't want, there we go. A really large area with multiple raised bed gardens. And so there's 3 giant ones here. I think there's something like 16 by 20, 3 of them here, and then some smaller beds, some raised beds here, like at a, you know, chest level here, and then even the 3-bin compost bin. And so right in the middle, I ran with this right away. As I had, before the new building project, we had gotten the gardens started again. And so I sort of staked out my own space here, and I took the middle large plot and got permission to plant a pollinator garden. I don't know if I actually got permission or not, I did. And so let me switch over to the pictures here. Very interesting to watch from year to year how things have changed. The first year, I think I had mostly, oh, I forget what the name of it is. These really pretty yellow flowers, partridge pea, came up all over the place, and some other things. It really wasn't that much. But over the course of the next several years, different things have come up. So this is what the garden looked like a couple of weeks ago. We've had tons of this. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit here. I think it's like wild bee balm bergamot, I think is what it's called. There's wild grape coming up in the middle of it. I didn't plant that. And then this year, for the first time down here, I don't know if you can see my cursor or not, but these orange areas, that's actually swamp milkweed, which is interesting. That must have been in the seed packet, but some of these things take a couple seasons to come into seed. Like, they have to go through the freeze thaw cycle. I think that's probably what has happened. Things have changed. This is what it looks like today. I took some pictures today, and it really doesn't do it justice. This flea bane all over the place here. There's still a little bit of that swamp milkweed. The bergamet's kind of going to seed now, but the goldenrod is really taken over. So there's tons of stuff. Black-eyed Susans are still back here. So there's tons of stuff happening. And let me show you this quick little video if I can. So I don't know if you can see any of the bees are all over the goldenrod right now. But this summer, we did some enrichment. I'm going to stop my share here. I did an enrichment course in nature journaling. And so I took some kids out just directly to the garden, to the pollinator garden. And so their task was to sketch little things as much as they could. We did some drawing beforehand to give them a little instruction, but then most importantly, observe. And what was really neat to see was when we went out there, this thing was loaded with bees. And I guarantee you, in your experience too, I'm sure with most people, 99% of the people, when there's a bee around or bees around, they're backing up and they're going away. And these kids weren't doing that. And I think that they would have, had we not talked about the importance of pollinators and all of this and getting them to really, they were supposed to be writing down, recording observations. And this was middle and high school kids, I should say, mostly middle school kids. I think we had a couple of high school kids. They were specifically there to record observations. And so it was funny to see them not backing up, but getting closer and trying to see what's going on. And some of them made some really good observations about what those bees were doing. So I've had a lot of fun with this thing. I do use it with the environmental science class. We go out there, we will do like little plots and do species identification. I've had projects where the kids make a sign. My sign is all faded now just to let the general public know that there's a pollinator garden. I guess a couple of months ago, somebody came by and was complaining to one of the teachers about this unkempt garden that somebody was letting, just go crazy. And like, I guess it's time to put a new sign out there so that people will know. And that brings up the point that you were talking about as well. Some of you were talking about is the education piece, is getting people to understand the aesthetics of this, and not only the importance biodiversity wise, but also the aesthetics of it. Like, change the aesthetic. If the Joneses have the lawn, let's make it uncool to have a lawn, right? And let's have it be cool to have something else. Douglas Tallamy talks about that. I know you were all talking about Douglas Tallamy earlier. So it's really cool. I think, I love being able to find stuff that I'm interested in and that I think is important, and I think helps the world be a better place too, right? That I can share with the kids. And a lot of the kids do get kind of jazzed up about it and get excited about it. Certainly the environmental science students do. And there's a lot of kids in the environmental club. It was very active this year. But trying to bring in more people as well and get more people to understand the importance of this native stuff. And then if I can, I'm going to go back here and share my screen again, because I want to show you this area over here is what used to be parking lot, and this used to flood all the time. In the new plans, they made a big deal about, and rightly so, and thankfully so, about trying to add green space just to be able to capture more water. So this whole area, I think, is designed to be a little bit of a basin here. It's not low ground. It's just flat. It is just a lawn. There is a swale right here. They did plant that with river birches and also some blueberries and that sort of thing. It has not flooded since they've done so many things in town. It has not flooded, I think, like they were expecting it to. So some of the things died off right away, but the birches are still there. But this whole area here, there's one little sewer grate in the middle of it. It's a nice wide open green space, but it is just lawn. So sort of my next pipe dream and something that I want to work on this summer is to write a grant to add another pollinator garden. I'm thinking to surround the sewer grate right in the middle there, right? I mean, this is mostly, I don't want to say wasted space, but it's not like there's a whole lot of sitting area. I mean, it is just a lawn. I don't know that we would be taking too much away from that if we were able to add a pollinator garden in here. And so I think that that would benefit certainly the bio students and the science students, but also the art students, because they can go out and do things, drawing, get an inspiration from that. But also with the school and the district has been so focused on social emotional health. It's a nice area to just go out and chill out with, looking at the birds and the bees in natural, somewhat natural setting. So that's sort of my next plan. I am excited to hear Prassede talk about the planting of the river. One of my next pipe dream is along those same lines. This area here would be a really nice area for our science students and art students for that matter, to be able to hang out around and do some, in the case of science classes, to do some observations and studies. And, it's just full of invasives right now. It would be awesome to be able to replant this area right here, or maybe something off to the side, like we have little access by the bridge here, maybe something over here, I don't know, but to bring in some more natives and some pollinator areas along this, and use the campus as our ecosystem for our science classes more deliberately. So that's kind of where I am. I love doing all this stuff. And I hope that I know a lot of the kids do that are in my class. So, but that's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm hoping to do. We'll see what ends up coming to fruition, but that's what I'm working on.
I'll jump right in here. Thank you so much. First of all, I have 3 kids who went through Winchester school system, and one was profoundly moved by the AP course and is making a career out of it. So my gratitude runs very deep. The other thing is, I don't know if you know me, I don't have the same last name as my kids, but Linda Forsyth, and I'm a child psychiatrist. So your social emotional health angle is very dear to my heart.
Mhm.
And if there were any contribution that I could make, volunteer to support this idea. One of my kids ended up coming through the art system at Winchester High School, went on to become an art major, and is now very deeply involved in that too. So mixing the art and the nature is a very, very powerful piece. And I'm happy to offer my services. I love what you're doing.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, the course that I taught this summer was the first time I've ever done it. It was scientific illustration and nature journaling. And so I definitely played up that piece when I put out the little advertisement for people to take it, is that, this is a time to be unplugged and just get some of that nature back.
I have a fun
fabulous.
slide about the change in attitude on bees. Has anybody seen this going around? I remember when I used to see a bee and go, yikes, and now I'm all like, wow, hi, can I get you anything? Need anything? Want to borrow the car?
That's fabulous. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I think we definitely fear what we don't understand. So
We also could pull in there's some beekeepers in town. I think that might really enjoy coming and teaching us a little bit more at, at a deeper level.
yeah, that's one of the things we do talk about, is the importance of bees, of course, in colony collapse disorder. But we also talk about how one of my favorite anecdotes from a book was, because of course honeybees are not native, the European honeybee that we all keep is not native, but that they've done studies that the honeybees, when they're the only game in town, so when you rent the honeybees to bring to a farm, that sort of thing, they get lazy. And I joke with the students, because I'm a union worker, I can say they get like union workers. Like if they're the only game in town, they get lazy and they don't travel to as many flowers per minute or per hour or whatever. However, they did the study. But when you do have competition, when you have native pollinators in the area, it's better for everybody. The honeybees work harder because there's competition, and the native pollinators are there, so that's better for them when they're not usually there. So it's a fun little thing that we need both.
For Mike, I'm on the Conservation Commission, and we have a big effort to restore the Aboriginal embankment around Mill Pond, Judkins Pond, and the whole town center. And we've done a lot. We've been spending 3 or 4 years on Mill Pond, and we hope to get to Judkins Pond. We did get the trees in along Skilling Road. Could I show our
Yeah.
video of that, Fred? It's about
Sure.
3.5 minutes. Will work. Can people see my screen?
Yep.
And then you can just Google.
Winchester is built on the banks of the Aboriginal River, and we're fortunate to have such a beautiful river flow through our town with Mill and Judkins ponds and the iconic Center Falls Dam. Currently, the river and views are challenged in many areas with invasive and overgrown plants that limit access and enjoyment. Prior to environmental protection laws being put in place, rivers and ponds were often cleared down to the water and accessible, but lacked much natural beauty. After these laws were enacted in the last century, the banks became protected, and both native and invasive plants soon established. With little upkeep, waterways have often become overwhelmed with invasive plants brought in by wildlife and the flowing water. The Aboriginal Initiative was established by the Conservation Commission with the goal of working to reclaim our river resource while still maintaining a healthy habitat for native plants and wildlife. Our goal is to provide plentiful opportunities for people to view and engage with our downtown waterways and along the bike path in the developing riverwalk. Through the removal and management of invasive plants, addition of native trees, shrubs, and flowers, we want to make these waterways a central feature and attraction in town. In 2019, downtown Winchester was designated as a cultural district by the state. And a key part of the Winchester Cultural District Partnership revolves around access to our waterfront, the Riverwalk, and the new bike path. In supporting this important designation, it is critical that we reclaim our waterfront from Shore Road by the high school down to the Waterfield Bridge to the post office by providing opportunities for residents and visitors to appreciate and engage with this beautiful resource. Elaine Breland is the administrator of the Conservation Commission, and she has been involved in protecting Winchester's wetland resources for many years.
The Aboriginal Initiative encompasses an area of the Aboriginal River from Waterfield Road to the Center Falls Dam, plus Mill Pond and Judkins Pond, an area that's been a landscape attraction since 1914. We're looking to restore the beauty of this original landscaping by cutting back overgrowth, planting trees, and planting native plants to provide a wildlife corridor. We envision this area with a river walk, a place where people can come and enjoy natural beauty, appreciate public art, and a place which can be a contributor to the local economy should businesses wish to stage events.
Over the past 10 years, Julie Riemenschneider has worked with several grants to map invasive plants and create a landscape master plan. Her work has been instrumental in guiding the Conservation Commission in its efforts.
The way Winchester Center looks today is largely the result of a landscape design done by Herbert J. Kellaway in 1914. The dams, the ponds, the open spaces around them, and their relationship to the civic buildings were all components of this plan. Our current landscape master plan honors the original intention by clearing vegetation to open up views of the important historic buildings and removing vegetation to reveal the bridges. Our river is an important resource, and we hope these improvements will encourage others to visit and enjoy.
Since 2019, the Conservation Commission has been working with Attaya Ecological to remove the massive amounts of invasive material around Mill Pond and to mitigate the reestablishment of these plants.
We at Marchand Ecological came in 3 years ago with approval from the Winchester Conservation Commission to begin restoration around Mill Pond here in the center of Winchester. In recent years, after removing a large quantity of the invasive plant species, we've also begun planting and installing native wetland wildflower species for aesthetic value as well as habitat restoration around this pond.
Our goal is to continue working with various town employees, boards, and organizations, the DPW, the Winchester Cultural District Managing Partnership, the Select Board, and every other group or individual interested in working towards our goal. Please support the significant effort to enhance the beauty of our downtown by providing greater access for everyone to engage with our water.
That's it. So James made the video from the high school with, he was the producer of the movie. We wrote the script for him.
Nice.
Wonderful.
So hopefully you enjoyed it. But we'd like to restore the area along the high school. That's another key area we're looking at. We were disappointed with the tree planting, that all they did was planted trees, smashed the erosion barrier, and didn't touch the invasives.
Yeah.
So it's high on our list to try to get started on Judkins Pond.
Yeah. Is that something that you would ever get student volunteers for, or how
Love
does?
it.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, I do a lot of work with volunteer groups. Yeah,
All right.
it'd be a great project. It's hard work. We need
Yeah.
we need young bodies that can do it too, you know.
Yep.
So that's a perfect segue for me to talk about the grant proposal that we put forward to, I sent it to members of Grow Local. The idea was, it was triggered by a Keep Massachusetts Beautiful grant competition. They give 5 grants a year to groups who are particularly focusing on something to do with pollinators. And it was a great opportunity because it sort of made me think about things from the perspective of pitching it to an organization in a very habitat oriented way, at the same time keeping the pollinators front and center. And if you read the proposal, you know this, I ended up thinking that really what we needed was hedgerows, habitat hedgerows, which you can think of a hedgerow as being an integrated bunch of plants focusing on some woody plants to create 3-dimensional habitat with as much biodiversity as you can pack in there. So the basic unit of a hedgerow is a tree with 3 to 5 what will be big shrubs around it, and something with prickly so that you can get a vine going up in there to help protect birds' nests, and then pollinator plants, native plants around on the grass level, replacing the grass. And the nice thing about thinking of it that way is you can make it into small sections so that you can do, say, a few sections if you only have room for a few or money for a few, or you can run it as long as you want for habitat corridors, greenways for everything from bats to butterflies to small mammals and even bigger mammals. So I approached Conservation Commission to ask for a match grant to whatever we get from Keep Massachusetts Beautiful, actually for their support first and then for a match grant. And I met the Aboriginal Initiative group, was kind enough to meet with me. It's actually pretty great. As a footnote here for me, I've been trying to get more habitat in Winchester since 2004. That was when I first went before the Conservation Commission to try to get more habitat into Davidson Park. And times have changed a lot. There are many people who are interested in this and focused on this and want to help make it happen. It was a very receptive. Conservation and the Aboriginal Initiative groups were both very receptive. Aboriginal Initiative is under conservation. And they said that they would match whatever we get from Keep Massachusetts Beautiful. The maximum we can get is $500. So I'm hoping that'll be $1,000. And Select Board has also encouraged us to apply to them for money. And I'm going to go for a match or double match from Select Board. So we could really make a difference. We could really plant up some good stuff. If possible, it would be somewhere downtown. Possible, it should be somewhere downtown. I hope along one of the ponds, places where people will see it and where we can use it as a demonstration for, look what you too can do, as well as just creating habitat. It's just one of the most important things we can do. And we don't have huge acreage in one place, but we have an awful lot of small pieces that we can connect up by planting natives and planting wisely. So the other thing that they wanted for this grant proposal, So that's the words, and you get, you say what you want, you put in some URLs to show that you're not completely making this up. And then there's the part where they say, and what are you going to plant and how are you going to do it? And that really made me sit down and have to think. And I realized that it was actually pretty straightforward. We want to increase species diversity at the plant level, because that means we can support increased diversity at every other level. So then I had a lot of fun and put together, I think it's about 40 woody plants, tree-like plants, and then a lot of shrubs and a few vines and berries. And then I just got completely tripped out on all these little packets. Each one of these units was going to be like its own whole thing, and they were all going to connect up with each other. So I sent it off today. I made sure that I got it out today so I could report to you all that it went off. And I think it's a useful unit for people who want to do this on their property, because it has a bunch of species that were very carefully selected for this purpose. So thrilled to share that with anyone if they want it. And, right now feeling pretty optimistic because I feel like it came together so nicely. I can't believe that it won't be funded, except you never can tell about these things. We will find out in early September. That's when they make the awards. And that would be kind of great because we could also order the plants at that time, fall plants for spring planting. And that way we can maybe beat the rush and get the plants before everything sells out, or while availability is still maximum. And we will have some materials that will be available for people who want to do this at home, giving them some basic information on how to do your own. And it occurred to me that it would be useful to send, I found some absolutely spectacular one in particular chart, which is just what I was trying to create, but it's been done for us. Botanical plant names, Latin, and across then the different months, and when it flowers, and then match that onto butterfly plants, butterfly season, so that you can really create, you can either buy one of everything and then you'll have something all the way across. Of course, I'll send it to everybody all the way across the season. You want to plant from as early as possible, which now is February, until as late as possible, which is kind of October. And so that there's food and support available across all those months. So it's a lovely resource, and I'm going to send it to the people from whom I buy all the time at Mahoney's and other nurseries and say, look, these are the plants we want you to buy. This is what we really need to have here. And you know what the demand is for native. Do it. This is how we're going to get some momentum going here. So it feels like a productive thing whether or not we get the funding. And I think if we don't get it from Keep Mass Beautiful, we should do something like a GoFundMe or Kickstarter for small amounts of money so that we can get the first one going. Maybe we can work with a high school, because that would be a nice place to put it in that. And you can pick your size of the unit. I went with 25 feet, each section being about 25 feet. And we're talking about 100 yards. So if you have a smaller place, you can go with a smaller size and you can plant the smaller trees. Luckily, where we're looking to plant this, we can have huge trees, which in town gets more and more difficult because people are worried about the wires everywhere, and so we can't plant tall trees. But there are all kinds of birds, for example, who only will nest in very tall trees. And so if we can have that somewhere away from the wires, we can increase the diversity for Winchester overall, maybe not on any one plot, but across the town, we can make a really substantial difference. So that's where we are with that. Yeah, I'm pretty excited too, in case you can't tell.
It sounds great, Prassede. I'd love to see your list.
Definitely. And it's only one. I mean, I'll tell you what, if you're not So Fred, I never know this part. Do we have the emails of everyone who is on tonight? Yes, because you wrote to people.
Yeah, there are a few people I'm not sure, but if they want to either email me or put it into the chat, their contacts.
That would be great. So I'll send it to everyone who's here this evening. Not because it's, you know, the be all and end all, but because it's kind of focused on Winchester and what we can probably do here. And it's a good start. So I'm happy to do that. What looks different to me from other pollinator plantings that I have seen is that this is very three-dimensional and four-seasonal. And a lot of the pollinator stuff I've seen focuses much more on the summer and the flowers. But if you don't support all the life stages, it's not going to help as much because they need to overwinter, the larvae need to develop, they need to be eating the leaves and stuff. So I feel like it's a much more holistic solution, potentially. And yeah, I think we should send it everywhere. If we have places to send it to now, I'll just, you know, tweak and take out whatever to make it fit the new stuff. I'd be happy to send it out everywhere.
It's a beautiful balance to the overwhelm, dread, and hopelessness that comes with some of the climate words. And I think people, I mean, I talk to young folks all the time and they're saying, what should I do? And if I were to ask somebody just neutrally, not looking at habitat or, you know, climate or anything, you know, just a totally neutral question, 7 out of 10 think that's what needs to be done. And they need ideas like this. So I really think there's a pool.
You know,
that can be
Earth
tapped.
Day is over 40 years old, which means that, for example, all my students at UMass and all the people that you're talking about, Linda, they've all been brought up on the idea of Earth Day and everything that goes with it. They get it. They're not the ones that need convincing. They not only get it, they know that it's bad. And at least for my students, they have two reactions. One is they want to pitch in, and the other is they drop out because it's so overwhelming. So anything we can do to help people feel that pitching in is worthwhile is really big.
And this also has such a visual 3D participation viewing after, right? You can go back and visit it, as I was saying, even about my yard. You know, it's not a donation that you're making to far away. It can be so local, right? So
I think the Kickstarter thing is a really good idea as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you should definitely make an attempt there.
And two key things politically in regards to the Massachusetts Healthy Soils Bill. It's actually Massachusetts Healthy Soils Act. It's actually part of the Economic Development Bill. So people are finally realizing that without a healthy ecosystem, you cannot have economic growth. They're making that connection, and there's a number of groups that are trying to push through with this whole big initiative on fixing the infrastructure, which people just think is roads and transportation. Soil is a huge part of the infrastructure. So they're really trying to get that accepted as a key part.
I put in the chat a link to the Lexington pollinator plant kits, Prassede. I thought you maybe could look at it, but they sold out right away. But
I've never, so they were griping or joking about those at one of the pollinator meetings. They said, has anybody ever seen these kits? Every time somebody has them, I go running over there, always out by the time I get there. So
hopefully next year they'll have more.
Well, I think we're making our own, really.
Yeah. Oh, for sale, or for just?
No, to give people this information.
Right,
That's what
right. No, you are. I just think interested. When you mentioned that, I said, oh, Lexington tried to do where you could buy it. You know, my daughter bought hers up in Denver. They're selling native plant kits, and for $20, $50, whatever it is, you get a kit and a little map that says how to do it, where to put them in a triangle, a square, a circle, or whatever. And for her, it was perfect. She needed to be told, how do I do it?
I like that.
And it gets you started.
I'd like to see that because I think we'll do it for free, or maybe we should do it for donation, and then we could put that into plantings.
Well, she's buying the plants. You know, she's buying the plants with a kit in Denver. This one
it comes with the plants.
Yeah, you buy, it gets mailed to you. And there's 5 or 6. I could say I'll find the link and I'll put it in the chat so people can see. And there's like 6 different themes for xeriscaping, you know. Yeah.
I have one kind of like a question about what just grows in your yard. I have a big corner of my yard that's a lot of wild things are growing. Many of them are invasives, but I don't think all of them are. So even identifying, I'm sure I can find a book, but I bet somebody out there could also help me identify a source I can look up to see what's a silly word, but it's fun. And I'd
Well,
like to know.
maybe people can take some pictures and report back, because we probably all have what you had.
Well, that's the thing. Everybody has a lot of
That's-
very similar things. That's true.
That's
Yeah,
exactly what
very
that's exactly what I do is I take a photograph and I put it on Show Me Your Garden. But you could do it on Grow Local. I think unfortunately Margo is not here, but we have a fantastic website here.
Oh,
You just post it there, and I'm sure a bunch of us could identify it for you.
that's
Maybe
great.
not me, but Prassede could, or Anne could, or Linda could. Yeah.
There's another one in Winchester, and they do, it's about 550 people, and a lot people post stuff and say, what is this? Do I like it? Do I not like it?
Oh, nice.
And it's people are very responsive. It's kind of
So
great.
I have one specific question, and then that's it. Why in Thalamy's book does he recommend Virginia creeper? I've been ripping that out of my backyard, like petrified that it's taking over, and it's a vicious thing. I don't get that, why he's
Well,
recommending.
it is native. You do need to control it because it will grow up on
So
everything.
invasive is used 2 different ways, Jean. One of them is meaning taxonomically, ecologically invasive. It's something that doesn't live here naturally. So it's been imported from Europe, Japan, wherever. It's also used talking about over-enthusiastic plants that come from here, that live here, but that are they will outcompete other natives.
And that's what we're talking about.
And that's what you're talking about, right? So in some areas, it's depending on the conditions, a particular species might or might not be overly competitive.
Mm.
I have a few things that are supposed to be invasive, and in my soil, for whatever reasons, they're calm and it's not a big deal. So you have to make the choice
Okay.
for yourself.
So the catalpa tree is a native tree, and
I got them.
right. And I have my parents' house. They have one beautiful, magnificent tree. I've never seen a sapling. On Winter Pond, there's hundreds.
Water.
They take over the pond. They love the water.
That's the
And
water.
we're afraid that it will fill in the pond.
Oh my God.
So we have to cut them back.
Yes.
So
I
the
don't have to.
the correct term for natives that are bullies like that take over is aggressive.
Or
So
enthusiastic, I use.
Yeah, invasive is supposed to be
Politically
part of the
correct.
definition of invasive is that they are exotic, that they're not for here.
Correct.
Native species can't be invasive. They can be
Correct.
aggressive and they can take over, but they're not invasive. They are
Correct.
aggressive,
That's helpful.
and so you gotta control them.
So
And
there's a good comment in chat, which is basically you want to enclose the roots. You want to put in a root barrier, which will help. So if you those little like 8-10-inch plastic fencing, you put that around the area. It's not a guarantee, and they'll go over it and stuff like that, but it's at least a start.
I'm done with
It'll
that
hold
stuff.
it.
I'm done with it.
Okay.
Wait till you see my yard, Prassede.
Clover.
I'll let-
Clover.
I'll invite you over. You can see
Okay.
what I got going
That's
here.
a deal.
Well, I can also speak for Margo, who is interested in highlighting other people's yards.
Mm.
And if anybody is interested and would like to do something a little bit more involved, I think she's very interested and would like to bring in the story that goes with these. So feel free to offer up. I know she's not here to
Well, that would be really fun.
be fun for
Okay.
us too.
So it's just after 8:30. We're coming to end of another episode. preview for the next one, something a little completely different. We've been talking about this bionutrient meter. And I just heard that it's going to get mailed out next week. And probably by the middle of the month, it'll be something for us to play with. And we'll talk about that, how it is a laser attached to an app to a Android phone that you can aim at. They have 10 specific crops, lettuce and beets and things like that, that you can aim this laser at, and whether it's in the grocery store or at the farmer's market or in your refrigerator or in your garden, it will tell you the nutrient quality of that particular product. And then you can find out where that product's come from, how it's grown, how long it's been since it's been picked. And it will tell you from all those factors how what the nutrient value is. And so the reason they're doing this is to connect nutrient qualities to healthy food and nutrient quality to healthy people, and healthy people to healthy growing practices. So hopefully that'll be on the agenda for the August Grow Local session.
Yeah, and I'd like to add that anybody who has been growing stuff in the vegetable category and with a sense of nutrient density, send in pictures. Like, we'd like to honor what's been going on. August will be a time when there'll be, some products. We haven't done much on the food side. I'm excited.
Great. Thank you. Another wonderful collaboration and conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks,
Fred.
everybody, for inviting me.
Thanks.
Thank you very
Thanks for
much.
coming.
Mike, you're welcome back.
All right,
Yeah.
send me the link.